Good evening, dear church. As always, great to spend some time with you in the Word. I hear that the wearing of masks have been intensified by you guys, and that you're probably sitting in church with your masks on. Welcome to Africa. I mean, at this moment, for the last 6 months, you can't even go into the beach without a mask. Well, for a few months, we couldn't even go to the beach. Now we can go to the beach, but we must wear our masks. Oh, but we're not allowed to go onto the sand. So, yeah, some of these things are just extremely ridiculous. But anyways, here we are, and we are still praying that God can rid the earth of this virus. But if he's keeping this on us, there's a reason. If he doesn't remove it, there's a reason for that. And us who believe in God, we just must hang in there. Today we're going to spend some time in Genesis chapter 26. If you want to open your Bible there, this is lesson 11 on Trail of Trials. The title is Isaac and Abimilech. When people envy and persecute you because of your blessed obedience. That's the idea that we're going to deal with today. Generally, when we find ourselves in a trial, it comes from two places. The trial comes either from God or it comes from people, and generally, either way, whether it comes from God or people, we try to resist in some way because we just don't like the discomfort. Now, if that discomfort comes from God, then we question Him, we beg Him, we shout at Him, sometimes we forsake Him, and sometimes we go seek help somewhere else. We take matters into our own hands, like Abraham, for example. When there was a drought in the land, where did he go? He went down to Egypt. The other time when there was a drought in the land, he went to Abimilech, to Gerar. And many people have responded to the pandemic in a similar way. I think there are people who are extremely scared of this pandemic, people who are extremely preoccupied and keep on watching the news channels, and they don't really go to God. Now, the difficult thing about facing a trial from God, which is what the world is experiencing currently, is that you can do nothing about it. If it reaches the proportions that only God can fix it, it's really quite annoying. You see, when God throws a trial at you, you can do nothing about it. But that might just be a good thing. If a trial comes from people, then we oppose them. We quarrel and fight with them. We have arguments with them. We've got sleepless nights. We've got conflict. And for me, that is the worst type. I would take a trial from God anytime. I'd rather be in a position where I can't control, but I know that the God of the universe has got this, than be in a position where I can have control, where people hurt me, and I can respond. When God throws trials at us, we can't really do anything about it except fret. But when people hurt us, steal from us, treat us badly, we can do something about it. And so when people throw a trial at you, you can do something about it. And that is maybe a bad thing. Because when we've got control in our trials, we tend to act out and make things worse. We involve hatred and anger. And maybe you're in that position currently. Somebody's got an issue with you, or you've got an issue with somebody at work, in your community, wherever you find yourself. And it's very uncomfortable. And you are tempted to do something, to act out, to say something bad, to get that person back. And then we make things worse. Now, in tonight's story, we are seeing Isaac in that position. In one sense, in the beginning of the chapter, we see God is putting him in a trial that he can't really do anything about. And then we see later on in the chapter that people are putting him in a trial. And let's see how he responds to that. So, once upon a time in Isaac's life, let's read this. Genesis chapter 26, I'm going to read from verse 1 to 22. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the earlier famine of Abraham's time, and Isaac went to Abimilech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and will give them all these lands, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed me and kept my requirements, my commands, my decrees, and my laws." So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, "She is my sister," because he was afraid to say, "She is my wife." He thought, "The men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah, because she is so beautiful." When Isaac had been there a long time, Abimilech, king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. So Abimilech summoned Isaac and said, "She is really your wife. Why did you say she is my sister?" Isaac answered him, "Because I thought I might lose my life on account of her." Then Abimelech said, "What is this you have done to us? One of the men might well have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, "Anyone who molests this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us." So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there. But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Esek, because they disputed with them. Then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also, so he named it Sitnah. He moved on from there and dug another well, and no one quarreled over it. He named it Rehoboth, saying, "Now the Lord has given us room, and we will flourish in the land." Now, I'm not going to spend time on verses 7 to 11. We've been through that a few times, right? We've been through the exercise twice already, both times with Isaac's dad. It seems like father like son is what's happening here between Abraham and Isaac. They both marry gorgeous women. They both lie about their wives being their sisters. They both did so in the pagan country, and they both did so during a famine. So it seems like desperation for survival sometimes inspires people to lie or to bend the truth a little bit. Anyways, we will move on from that and not spend time on that today. There are three key lessons I would like to take out of the verses we've read today. So I've sectioned them out. Three ideas I think we can take something valuable from. Firstly is this: my obedience softens my children's trials. My obedience softens my children's trials. If you go read 26 verse 1 to 6 again. Isaac goes to the land of Gerar to escape the famine. And what's interesting to me is that God promised this beautiful and this fruitful land to the patriarchs. And they hold on to the promise. But yet then this land is taken over by drought. I think it's 3 times now already that this beautiful land that God promises to them is taken over by drought. Can you imagine what Isaac is thinking? God gives us a piece of land that seems to be cursed. Every time we live on it, we start to relax on it, then a drought comes. The land with fruitfulness is dry and dead often. My goodness, how does God's promises and His blessings then work? Have you ever felt like that? I'm sure you have. Maybe it was in this mindset, as Isaac was contemplating this mindset, that God decided to reveal Himself to Isaac and just have a chat with him quickly, which we read from verses 2 to 4. We see that God says the most wonderful things that could be said to any human being on earth. God makes promises and commitments to Isaac. It's like he pours out His heart of love towards Isaac. I will be with you, He says. Wow. I will be with you. I will bless you. Not only will I be with you, but I will bless you. And I will give you and your children this land. You know what? And I will give you as many children as the stars in the heavens. That's uncountable. And I will bless the whole world through your descendants, specifically your seed, referring to Jesus Christ, through whom the whole world would be blessed. But the crux for me, the most striking part for me is verse 5. You see, if Isaac was to ask God, Lord, why are you making these promises to me? Why are you so good to me? Then God would say, because of your dad. That's why. I'm giving you this land. I'm blessing your children. I will bless you. I will be with you because of your dad. Now Isaac might ask, well, Lord, why are you so fond of my father? Why are you good to me because of my father? What did my father do? And then the text answers it, because your father obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my mitzvah, my statutes, my customs, and my laws, the Torah, the translation is. Your father was obedient to me in every aspect imaginable. That's why I bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, the point is clear. Our obedience to God will make life easier for our kids. Parents are often so preoccupied with providing money for their kids and getting them educated. Yet the best thing that you can do for your kid is to be obedient to God. It's saturated all over the Old Testament scriptures. Let's just recap this. God says, I will bless you wherever you go, even though there's a drought, even though people oppose you, I will bless you. God is softening the trial here for Isaac. Let me read to you a few verses. Psalm 112, verse 1 to 2. Praise the Lord. Blessed are those who fear the Lord, who find great delight in His commandments. Their children will be mighty in the land. The generation of the upright will be blessed. Psalm 127, verse 1 to 4. Blessed are all who fear the Lord, who walk in obedience to Him. You will eat the fruit of your labor. Blessings and prosperity will be yours. Your wife will be like a fruitful vine within your house. Your children will be like olive shoots around your table. Yes, this will be the blessings for the man who fears the Lord. Psalm 25, verse 12 to 13. Who then are those who fear the Lord? He will instruct them in the ways they should choose. They will spend their days in prosperity, and their descendants will inherit the land. Psalm 37:25, beautiful text. I was young, and now I am old, yet I've never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging for bread. They are always generous, and they lend freely. Their children will be a blessing. Proverbs 20, verse 7, the righteous lead blameless lives. Blessed are their children after them. I think it's clear. There are two thoughts I just want to leave you with regarding this point. If obedience softens the trials of our children, then my easy life could be the result of my parents' obedience. If you've been blessed in your life, it's not because you're amazing, it's because your parents were obedient to God. And that leaves me in a space where I can't be arrogant. Because of them I stand, because of them I'm blessed. Secondly, obedience carries a double incentive. Me and my children benefit. Obedience is the key. That brings me to point number 2. My obedience can intensify my trials. My obedience can intensify my trials. We see here that Isaac really is minding his own business. He gives his best in the field. He gives his best with the flocks. That's what we read from verse 12 to 16. His crops and flocks produce great results. It produces 100-fold increase. And the Philistines become envious. And Abimilech asks him to leave. What is going on here? Is it such a crime to be blessed by God? Right? 2 points. Firstly, obedience to God activates the blessings of God. Right? Isaac was obedient. God said to him, stay here, right? I will bless you here. And then God blessed him because Isaac stayed. I met with a young man this week, and his question to me was that he doesn't understand the absence of God in his life. He doesn't feel the presence of God. He doesn't experience the blessings of God. It's just been intense. And so I asked him a little bit about his life, and he told me that he's got a kid, a 3-year-old kid, and he's with another lady. And I said, well, why aren't you married to her? He says, no, because she's a non-believer. And I'm like, okay, you're a believer, she's a non-believer, but you slept with her anyways, and now you've got a kid with her. You could hardly ever see your kid. You can't afford to take care of your kid. And I asked him, have you been obedient to God? Have you repented of this? Have you made it right? Have you taught her about Christ? Does she understand it? What it's about? I mean, there's lots of stuff. A life of disobedience leads to a life of despair. Ladies and gentlemen, we underrate the effectiveness of simple obedience. It is good for you and it's good for your relationship with God. There's no special formula to get God activated in our lives other than simple obedience. The text says your iniquities have separated you from God, the writer of Isaiah. The New Testament tells us that when we draw near to God, then God draws near to us. What does that mean? It starts with obedience. That's how we draw near to God. So, obedience to God activates the blessings of God. It's true. And the blessings of God activates the envy of people, unfortunately, because people are carnal minded. And that is what happens here to Isaac. And this is the ugly type of jealousy that this text is using here. And the envy of people activates persecution. So it's difficult being a Christian. Right? You see God's blessing and you get God's blessing through obedience, but then Satan makes a field day out of it. He gets his cronies to be jealous of the blessings of God. And then they become a trial to you. Now, I'm sure you've been through this at work. You don't understand what people's problems are. They keep on making life difficult for you. Here is the answer, ladies and gentlemen. They are jealous. They won't say it, but they are jealous. And Satan has instigated them to persecute you. Now, the persecution in Isaac's case happened in two ways. Firstly, they filled up the wells that his father had dug. So they made life difficult. I will take away your water. They wanted to make life difficult for him. Secondly, they then asked him to leave. He was too powerful for them. And this leaves us with two thoughts. Number one, expect envy from people when God blesses you. They won't really have a reason. The reason for envy is generally not revealed. The psalmist writes, "O God, whom I praise, do not remain silent. For wicked and deceitful men have opened their mouths against me. They have spoken against me with lying tongues. With words of hatred they surround me. They attack me without cause. In return for my friendship, they accuse me. But I am a man of prayer. They repay me evil for good and hatred for my friendship." What is the problem? That is Psalm 109 verse 1 to 5. You see, jealousy is a form of hatred built upon insecurity. That's what it's about. People who are intimidated by you talk bad about you with hopes that others will find you not so appealing. That's really what happens here. A beautiful text is found in Acts chapter 7 verse 9. The patriarchs were jealous of Joseph. They sold him as a slave into Egypt, but God was with him. What matters is not the jealousy of people. What matters is that God is with us. I would take the jealousy of people any day as long as God is with me. You see, when people attack you without reason, always remember their issue is with the God that is with you. God is with you. They don't like that. Second point I'd just like to make is extinguish your envy when God blesses other people. We must be careful. Sometimes people around us are blessed, and we've got to be careful of not becoming jealous about that. Blessings come from God. So we've got to evaluate our own jealousy, our own envy as well. And it happens. It happens in the church. It happens among us. Make sure you don't like people because you are jealous. Proverbs 23:17 to 18 says, "Do not let your heart envy sinners, but always be zealous for the fear of the Lord. There is surely a future hope for you, and your hope will not be cut off." Moving on to point number 3. That is from verses 17 to 22. Here's the point. Remaining passive is often the best way to respond to trials. Remaining passive. Isaac seems to be a very passive guy. Abimilech asks him to leave. He doesn't argue. He just leaves. I actually believe in that. If people don't want you in your life, move away. Simple as that. He then goes and he digs a well. He needs water for his flocks. And I don't think that was an easy task. I mean, imagine digging a hole into the earth with buckets or with some spades and buckets. You don't know where you'll be getting water. Today we've got wonderful apparatus that can show us, here's water, right? I don't think it was an easy task to dig a hole into the earth and you don't know if there's water. It must have been a task and a half. Anyways, he digs the well and he finds great and fresh water. But then the herdsman of Gerar claims It is their water. This is the point where I go into a boxing fight. Do you know how hard I worked for this well? This is my water. I deserve this water. What does Isaac do? Well, he gives it a name and then he leaves. He calls it Esek, which means dispute. Okay, that well's name is dispute. So he goes and he moves on. He's passive. He digs another hole, another well, another effort. And once again, there's an issue. What does he do? He responds the same way. He gives it a name and then he leaves. This time he calls it Sitna, which means opposition. And then he moves out of the area again. And he goes and he digs another well. This time, nobody argues. So he calls it Rehoboth, which means room. Isaac is clever, right? This is what we learn from him. You intensify the trial when you resist. You make things worse when you resist. Isaac was a man that chose peace over quarreling every single time. When there's a dispute, passively move away. When there's opposition, passively move away. Why? Because you will eventually find room, space where you're comfortable, space where you're at peace. Some people believe that they're going to find peace by attacking their attackers. No, that's not how you have peace. That's how you create war. So if people got an issue with you, move away. Paul wrote to the Colossians and said to them, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. Sometimes the only way to keep that peace is to move away from disputes and opposition. Behind all the opposition, the people who has got their knives out for us stands under the influence of the ancient tempter. You don't defeat Satan by using his weapons. You defeat Satan by using God's weapons. And what were the weapons used on the cross, ladies and gentlemen? When they insulted him, threw words at him, shoved vinegar sponges in his mouth, stabbed him, what did he do? He silenced the world by his silence and his actions. And we've got to do the same. Chris Lumpkin said, don't ever mistake my silence for ignorance, my calmness for acceptance, my kindness for weakness, or my turning the other cheek for cowardness. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes more strength to remain passive than to respond in kind to others. When you throw dirt, you lose ground. And that is the beauty of Isaac here. He wanted peace, not justice. You see, turning the other cheek is a kind of moral jujitsu. Turning the other cheek is not submissive. It is defiant. Knowing when to walk away is wisdom. Being able to walk away is courage. Walking away with your head held high. Now let me just recap the 3 points for us today that we can take home. Firstly, my obedience softens my children's trials. Secondly, my obedience can intensify my trials, so I must expect trials if I'm obedient. And thirdly, remaining passive is often the best way to respond to trials. May these thoughts bless your week. May God be with you and may He bless you. We'll chat again next week. Love you all. Bye-bye.